It is Shabbat Zachor. And Shabbat Zachor is tied to the Shabbat right before Purim, hence my fun Geula reading. And this is the Shabbat when we read a section of Deuteronomy. And it goes like this. Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. B'derech betzetcha mi Mitzrayim. Remember what Amalek did to you on your journey after you left Egypt. How, undeterred by fear, he surprised you on the march, when you were famished and weary, when you were ayef, when you were exhausted and anaf, the agefa, that when you were exhausted and tired and hungry at your lowest, he cut down all of the stragglers in your rear. Therefore, when God grants you safety from all your enemies around you, and you're in the land that God is giving you as a hereditary portion, this is the line of Zachor, of memory. You shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. Okay? Blot out the memory. Blot out the memory. And so that's why when you say Amalek, you're supposed to do that. Or Haman.
Boo!
And that's why this is read. Haman is, I feel like I should go get the grogger at this point, is a descendant.
Not the little one.
Not the little one. Little grogger, big sound. Haman is a descendant of Amalek. And so when we read the story of Esther, you're supposed to blot out, not carve out, not erase, but cover over that name. Don't forget. And it's such a powerful, beautiful, incredible teaching, vision, value to live out. You can see what it does as we are in a service, as you start talking about those forces that would just destroy us because we're Jews. The anti-Semitism in the world, how often have we talked about it being an Amalek enemy? Or of what we're seeing in anti-Semitism feeling like it's Haman coming after us once again. And so here we get this instruction that we are always, don't forget, to blot out the name of Amalek. And as of late, it feels like that's been a lot of work. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of anti-Semitism in the world. A lot of it's is around the country. Some of it is in our very community where there are anti-Semitic flyers dropped again. Sometimes it is national figures on social media, and sometimes it's bloggers and Instagram stuff. It is awful, it's painful, it's scary, and it's that response. How are we supposed to respond? And I will say it's interesting that I might have pulled a little bit of an Esther on you. Because does Esther go to the Jewish people and rally the Jewish people to stop Haman?
No.
Who does Esther go to?
Her husband.
That was exciting. There's the answer. That's okay. She goes to Ahasuerus. She goes to the non-Jewish king that she happens to be married to rally support. That's what I've actually been doing over the last 2 weeks. Going on Wednesday night, I was actually at community church. I've been speaking with folks in the Sunrise Rotary Club, reaching out to First Presbyterian. Some of you might have seen the letter to the editor that was in the newspaper this week. Folks at Our Savior Lutheran and First Baptist, and the list is pretty long of different folks from the community who I've been connecting with, stepping forward, saying, we don't want that kind of hatred. We don't want any hatred in our community. And we're having some really amazing, incredible conversations about what to do in our community. Because whether it's anti-Semitism or racism or sexism or homophobia or Islamophobia, it doesn't matter what the senseless hatred is. Because how often do the ones who pervade that who bring that senseless hatred in the world, then turn immediately around and turn it onto someone else. We all know that Martin Niemöller quote, first they came for this, well, I wasn't that, so I didn't say anything, and then they came for me, and there was no one left. And so there's the challenge. So I've been going out to the wider community. Some of the folks from our congregation have been joining me in some of those efforts. We do actually now have also contact with the Federation of Palm Beach, and they are going to come up and do a program with us on some of the nuances of what is happening with anti-Semitism. That is all in the works. In addition to, there is going to be a holiday coming up this week. Tomorrow night, you can come and drink and make merriment in the face of our enemies. On Tuesday, you can come and hear a little bit of the Megillah. You've heard of this Purim thing, right? Have you heard what the story of the holiday is? They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat. Okay? So we do with this in all kinds of different ways. Part of it, what I know I'm dealing with, is that's ancient history, right? And then I turn around and no, it's not ancient history. It feels very close and tight on us. And so there is, what are we supposed to do, right? Because we get this instruction of always to remember to blot out the memory of Amalek. Don't forget. So are you always supposed to be on alert? Are you always supposed to be watching? Are you always supposed to be acting to stop that stuff? And if you're always on alert and you're always ready to blot it out, and you're always, because the rabbi might say, Haman, see, it took you too long, right? In that blink of an eye, something bad can happen. Okay? Is anyone feeling anxious? My heart got going just trying to do that. So there's how, if we're always supposed to do this, what does it mean to always do it? And it's in this Shabbat, on this Torah portion, when we're supposed to read about Amalek and blotting out the memory of Amalek, and how we're supposed to face senseless hatred, the ones who would come after us when we are tired and weary and famished, and not show any fear of divine and the fact that we are all interconnected, we also get an incredible other instruction. That you are further instructed, this is from Exodus, a different section from the Deuteronomy, to bring your clear beaten olive oil for lighting and kindling your lights regularly. However, the Hebrew will catch your ear, I hope. Okay? So you're supposed to, Vayikhu elech Hashem zayet zach, sorry, the print is really small. Zayet zait chatit lamaor ha'alot ner tamid. Does anyone see a ner tamid in this building? Okay, immediately all the hands. Okay, so that is our ner tamid. So what do you know about that ner tamid? Why is it a ner tamid? It's the eternal light. It always stays on, and then Cantor is going to point out, wait a second, it's not really a candle, it's a flickering light bulb kind of thing.
None of them are candles anymore because we don't want to burn down our building.
So we don't use candles anymore. You don't want to burn down the building. We've had a little fire.
What you looking at me for?
That's a ner tamid. Or is it? Or is it? Because I will have you know that Rashi says that that is in fact a ner tamid. That in the temple of Jerusalem, first in the tabernacle as we have described here, and then in the temple of Jerusalem, there was a light that was always lit. But Rashi says maybe it wasn't always lit. He says do something every night. It may be termed continually just as you speak, that it was something that it would always be lit. Each night, the sun goes down. You all are good with that. And when the sun goes down, it gets dark. Yes? You're good with that? And so each night when it gets dark, you always light a light. That's a ner tamid according to Rashi. Oh, wait a second. Rashi's not saying there was a fire always lit. What he's saying is it was always being lit every night. Suddenly, Tamid, Ner Tamid doesn't mean making sure there's a lit light always lit in your sanctuary. It means that you always come back to doing an action. It doesn't mean that we're always on alert to stop anti-Semitism. It means that we're always ready when it's there, when it gets dark, to respond with bringing the light. It's wonderful, helpful, meaningful, powerful, beautiful teaching, because it doesn't say that you always have to walk around grogger in hand, ready to stomp out that darkness and evil and always on alert. The tamid means that it's a continuous, regular thing, that when that is there, then you take care of it. Then you react and respond. But then Rambam, and if you saw Rambam's response, I'm the one that jokes that I get paid by the word. Rambam writes like he gets paid by the word. Rashi did pretty well too. And realize this is good rabbinic literature. For some of you saw the last Treasure Coast Film Festival, and it was a movie called Tango Shalom, and the guy went to the rabbi to get an answer of whether he could dance the tango with a woman who is not his wife. And the rabbi said, well, on one hand, but on the other hand, it never gave him a definitive answer through the entire movie. It was great. Rashi does that, right? He says, well, maybe it's a light that was always lit, and maybe it's this continuous kindling. Maybe both are true, right? Both of them, maybe some of it is always being realized that you're always going to have to face that darkness and always be ready to respond to it, but you don't always have to. There are all sorts of ways to use those teachings of Rashi. But Rambam says something else. He says something interesting that is a reason we are here and a reason that I hope that you come at some point to our observance of Purim. Rambam says this: it was both. How was it both? How is it that there was a light that was continually burning if the priests of ancient Israel always had to come in and kindle light? Rambam said, wouldn't you know it, Moses Maimonides himself, there were multiple lamps. There was lamps on the east side, there were lamps on the west side, there were lamps in the center. There was always a lamp lit, but if the ones in the center are burning, clean up the ones on the east. And if the ones are in the east, or get the ones on the west set up. And so that it was a continuous rotation of the lights that were lit, but one was always lit. And I read that commentary thinking about that fear and that anxiety. Am I always supposed to be on guard? Am I always supposed to be ready to charge? And I realized I'm asking the wrong question. It's not am I, but is it are we? It wasn't one light, but it was one process of bringing lights. It was a collective system of candles, of torches, of lamps, whatever we want to call it, and they worked together to support each other. What a powerful and beautiful way to remind us, as we're getting ready for Purim, that when we are facing Amalek, when we are facing our Haman, that we don't always have to be the first one to respond or the one that's on alert, but we have to make sure that we are tuned in, that we are interconnected, that we are ready to support. You might not be the first one when I say Amalek that calls out. It might be the cantor. It might be Esther. It might be Alex. But the key is when someone else calls out, can we respond? Can we add our light to their light, bringing more light into the world to push back on the darkness? If we all work together, then we can make sure there is always a light lit, that we are always ready to do the work we need to do and not forget to blot out the name of Amalek. Shabbat Shalom.